I could say it to everyone now. Welcome to my live Wednesday. My Insta family, welcome to you too. We are live here, guys, like we are every Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Last week, though, I was not actually live. I didn't try to fool you. I told you right on the beginning of it, if you were there in the beginning, that I was out of town and attending Flip Hacking Live, which I talked about on this live. I've talked about my podcast. I emailed. If you're on my email list, you got an email about it. I was speaking there. Some of the best and brightest real estate investors from around the country. Just an awesome event. I got to speak there again this year, and I talked about how to build, foundationally, build your company, scale it, and automate it in any market, right? So we're going into recession. Everyone's kind of freaking out and wondering if they can do real estate with the recession, with interest rates rising and property values going down and all the craziness. And that was something I addressed at Flip Hacking Live and kind of showed how you can cut through the actual recession and cut through, um, you know, a bad real or I shouldn't say a bad real estate market. That's not true. Through a different real estate market as it shifts, right? How do you get through all that and still be profitable and still grow and not stress out and not, go out of business? And there's no reason to go out of business, right? This market that we're going into is as good as the market we left, just in different ways, right? It depends on what you're looking for. If you're a homeowner, like a retail seller, yeah, it's a worse market, no doubt about it. I'm talking about investors. As an investor, the market we're going into is every bit as good as the one we're leaving. In fact, I personally prefer the market that we're going into. I think it's going to work in our favor as investors in a lot of ways. Um, and I'm open to talk about that tonight if anybody has questions or wants to chat about it. But that's what I talked about at Flip Hacking Live. It was a great presentation, and I got to see some other really cool, smart investors talk about what they're doing in their business and how they're growing and how they're talking to sellers, how they're marketing, how they're kind of going back to basics. Whenever you have a market shift where things seem unstable or you're unsure, it's always good to go back to what a friend of mine, Andy McFarland, calls blocking and tackling, like the fundamentals. We go back to the fundamentals. We talk about what always works, what worked 20 years ago, what worked 10 years ago, what works now. And the market's nothing to be afraid of, but you just have to plug into a network. You have to plug into a group. You have to find a coach, a mentor. You really should find someone who's been through some of that stuff and they know what to expect and they know how to help you navigate that. The entire reason why I was able to blow my company up, and by blow it up, I mean grow it fast, exponential growth, was because I had coaches, mentors, friends, people who were in business a lot longer than me who could kind of show me the way and kind of navigate me through some of the rough waters. And so I want to be here to do that for you, both on this live and in a more substantial way. If you want to, you can always go to my website, mikesimmons.com, and click on the coaching tab and see what I have available for you there. But in the meantime, if you want something for free, for me, that will help you generate leads, which is always like a big topic. Whenever I am around a group of investors and we start chatting, it seems like leads are always something that bubbles up to the top of what we end up talking about. So, into that end, I've created a course in direct mail, a direct mail course, right? So, direct mail has been responsible for the vast majority of the deals I've gotten in the last 7 years, over 700 deals. It's been responsible for the vast majority of those. And I did a kind of an informal survey before I went to Flip Hacking Live. And I reached out to all of my friends and people that I know in real estate that have a really successful business. And I asked them what their best marketing channel is. Where do they get the most deals? Where they make the most money? Like what would they give up last if they had to start giving up some of their marketing? And virtually every one of them said direct mail was the best. And so if you're not sure how to do it, or if you think you know how to do it and you think you're doing a pretty good job, but you're not sure if there's anything you're missing, or you want to maybe dial it in and get a little bit better, go and grab my course. It's called Winning Direct Mail, and it's free right now. I have sort of hinted at this for a while that I may start charging for it. I think it's valuable. I don't think that when you think of a free thing, you think of something that's just sort of quick and kind of got thrown together in an hour and it's a PDF or something. This is not. This is 5 videos. A couple of them are fairly substantially long. Um, It's not the length of the videos, though, it's the quality of the content. And so I know the content is of high quality, and I think I should be charging, if not several $100, maybe a couple $1,000. And I'm toying with that. So grab it while it's free. I don't know that I'm going to let it be free forever, but I am for now. Until I figure out what I want to do, it's going to be free. So you should go grab that before I charge for it. And again, it's called Winning Direct Mail. You can go to mikesimmons.com/winning direct mail, or you can just go to winningdirectmail.com. You can get it there too. Okay. Let's dive into today's questions. And if you're live and you have questions, then please ask them in the chat and I will prioritize them. Okay. First question. Which team member has been the hardest for you to find? Um, without question, and I think this is not unique to me. I think this happens in a lot of real estate companies. So in real estate, there's a sales function, just like in any business, right? We have sales. But in real estate, especially a wholesaler, there's two kinds of sales. There's the sales where you go out and talk to the homeowners and you buy their house from them with a purchase agreement. That's like front end. We call that acquisitions. We're acquiring homes. So acquisitions. Once you get the home under contract, if you're a wholesaler, there's something called dispositions, right? And our dispositions manager takes that purchase agreement and he sells it to another investor for a higher price than what we have it under contract for. And that's how we make money, right? We make the difference. So the question is, what's the hardest member of the team that's hardest to, the member that's been hardest to find? It's acquisitions. It's almost always acquisitions. And the reason why is it it takes a really good quality experienced salesperson to do it really, really well, because you're dealing with folks in a lot of cases that have a lot of personal distress. Their house probably even has distress, meaning it is in bad shape. And it's difficult to find really good acquisitions people. And the funny thing is, sometimes you hire an acquisitions person and you think you have a really good one and you don't. And and sometimes you find out because they quit or whatever happens and they're not with you anymore. And then you hire somebody else and they're actually a really good salesperson and you kind of see the difference. Or you hire someone you think is pretty good, your business is growing, so you need a second one and you bring that second one in and they just blow the doors off the first one and you realize the first one was just okay. It's a tough position and it's so important. It's so important to all positions in your company are important, trust me, but acquisitions I think is a little bit maybe even more important. And there's an opportunity cost with acquisitions. If you get a bad or you have a bad acquisitions manager or you're doing acquisitions for your own company and you're not doing it at the highest level, you're not really good, you're just doing it because it's your company and you need someone to do it, then you may be leaving deals on the table, so to speak. And you're not getting all the deals that you should be getting, and or you're getting deals, but you're not getting them at the right price because you're not a good enough salesperson, or your acquisitions person is not a good enough salesperson to get it at the actual price that you need to get it. Now, I mentioned that the market that we're going into and that we're kind of in now is great and it, or at least just as good. And it is. The challenge with the market that we're going into, because we're sort of in the gap phase, meaning we were up here with prices, we're going to end up somewhere down here, right? Whatever that is, but we're in the transition. And when you're in the transition, sometimes it's difficult because as prices are going down, you have to buy prices and you have to run comps, and your ARV has to reflect a declining market. And so most people will say, okay, well, over the last 6 months, houses like the one that I want is going to sell for X, and maybe X is 200,000. That's the ARV, right? And so 200,000 should hold for a while. It should be pretty steady. It should be a consistent, stable number. But in the gap, declining market, right? We're going from here to here. It's on like a roller coaster going down. Whatever it's worth today, it's not going to be worth that in 2, 4, 6 months. And so you have to anticipate the decline of the market, and it's hard to know when it hit the bottom. Nobody for sure knows when it hits the bottom until it starts going back up and continues to go up or levels off indefinitely. Then you hit the bottom, but we don't know where that is. So it gets a little tricky. So when you're out there doing acquisitions, your acquisitions team or your acquisitions person has to be making offers that will stand the test of time. And by stand the test of time, I mean they have to figure out today what it will be worth, let's just say in 6 months, because sometimes things happen and it just takes a little longer. Days on market are longer. You could have something go wrong with the rehab, or your buyer could have something go wrong with the rehab, whatever the case may be. And you have to anticipate what it's going to be 6 months from now, or 4 to 6 months from now. And so that's a little bit trickier. And so hiring an acquisitions person who's really, really good at sales, they have a strong work ethic. They're competitive. I like acquisition people who are competitive, and they're a people person. Like, they like people, they enjoy people, they want to solve problems. Sometimes that person's difficult to find. Other members of your team can be quite easier to find than acquisitions, and so you have to kind of figure out that balance and walk that tightrope. But that's the position that was hardest for me, and it's the position that I have witnessed be the hardest for a lot of investors that I've worked with over the years, and I've worked with hundreds of them. And I hear it time and time again. I don't hear any other position that is consistently causing so much anxiety, stress, worry, because they either can't find someone, they found someone and they're not good, or they found someone that is good and that person's leaving. That's the other thing. A really, really great salesperson sometimes has a shelf life that's shorter than everybody else. They tend to be like this rocket that goes up and it can't sustain its momentum and its enthusiasm. And so it needs to move on to a new challenge. And that's why I said, a good acquisitions person is very competitive. A very competitive person can get bored easy sometimes. And so that's the other thing. You may find that great person, but if your business isn't growing and bringing them the consistent wins or the money, to be quite frank, that they want, they'll move on. They'll look for something bigger and better. So just know acquisitions is probably going to be the toughest thing you're going to hire for. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I'm going to grab a drink when we do that. Okay, that was a super long drink. Sorry. All right, for long-term rental properties, how often do you recommend doing a property inspection? Does this need to be specified in the lease? Um, yeah, it needs to be specified in the lease. Number one, that's an easy one. Yes, you do have to specify. I suggest no more than once a month, and that's a lot. That's probably a little bit aggressive. I think once a quarter is appropriate. Um, so once every 3 months, that's appropriate. I think that's smart, and that's probably what you should be doing, to answer the question quite directly. I think once a year is a little bit too far apart. The only exception to that would be if you have a house in a nice neighborhood with renters that you've had for a while, that have a long history of taking really good care of the house. Maybe once a year is okay after a while. But I think when you first sign a lease with a renter, you should be doing it at least once a quarter, maybe every other month if you're concerned, or maybe if you have reason to believe the house could get exceptionally beat up, maybe you let someone in with 4 kids and 3 dogs and a cat. I wouldn't, but for the record, but if you did, there's a good chance that house is gonna need a little TLC sooner than others. So you might want to check it, once every other month. But I think once a quarter is good. Once every 6 months is probably pushing it quite a bit. And once a year is too long. Unless, again, like I said, you have a history with a renter who takes great care of it, and it's just a nice house and a nice neighborhood. You don't have to worry about anything weird going on. Like, that's probably totally fine, right? So once a quarter, I think, is the best. But you have to specify in the lease. You can't go in once a quarter necessarily if nothing in the lease specifies that you're going to do that. And if for some reason your lease doesn't specify that, most long-term leases will say that as the owner, you have the right to enter the premises with some kind of notice, right? But I would just let them know it's a standing thing. Once a quarter, I'm coming in. And maybe you don't tell them the exact, like, you don't say on, the first day of each quarter, because maybe they can just kind of prepare for that every time. But even if they do prepare, for the record, it's fine. I mean, at least you know that the house is getting cleaned up really, really well once a quarter, right? How often of us, how often do you or me or anybody like really go through and clean their house well? Probably when you have a party or something, right? Once a year, twice a year. But you can go through and realize the difference between a little bit of clutter, maybe some dirty laundry on the floor versus the house is being abused, right? And so you should go in every quarter and check that out. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, next question. What do you feel about giving friends and family booking? I'm sorry. Let me start that again. What do you think about giving a discount to friends and family booking vacation weeks in a short-term rental? Um, I think that most short-term rental owners give discounts when there's vacancies in their booking schedule. But they don't do it far in advance, and I wouldn't do it far in advance for friends and family either. So there's software out there that will help you dynamically price your house. So when the house is at high demand, it'll raise the prices. When it's at low demand, it'll lower them, and sometimes it'll lower them as it gets closer too, because as it gets closer, it's less and less likely to get rented. So if your friends and family want to sort of have that, who did that originally? The commercial with William Shatner, I think Priceline, I think did it, where if you sort of like are loose about the day and the time that you leave, you can get a really great price. And so if your friends and family are okay with being a little bit last minute ish, um, yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, I would rather give my friends and family a discount on the booking than have it sit vacant sometime, right? And so if they're willing to slip into that and kind of let you tell them last minute when it's available, I think it's great. If they say to you, let's just say that your peak season, for the sake of argument, is July, okay, in your short term rental, and they tell you, first of all, I wouldn't give them a discount in the month of July if that's peak season, but let's just say you're feeling lucky, or you're feeling, I shouldn't say lucky, you're feeling generous, and you decide you're open to it, but they can't tell you on January 5th that they want to book it on July 21st for a week at a discount, right? You would need to get much, much closer to that week to know it's going to be vacant before I would give them a discount. Um, Even if they want to book at a time that's not peak, let's just say, for the sake of argument, January is like your slowest month and you have very few bookings. I still would not let them tell you 6 months in advance what day they want, because that could be the day of the month that everybody wants that, and you would get a full price booking on that day if you didn't pre-book it early, right? And so they sort of have to wait and take the standby, right? The standby fare, and wait until last minute and then tell them. But yeah, why not? I'd rather it not be vacant. I'd rather give it to my friends and family at a discount than have it sit vacant. But remember, don't give it to them for free, even if it's vacant, because you have to clean that house, right? It has to be cleaned. I would rather make something for my friends and family than have it sit vacant, like I said. But if you're thinking, well, if it's going to be vacant, I'll just let them stay there for free, I wouldn't do that, because there are expenses that associated with having the house, somebody occupy it for a weekend or a week or whatever it is. So yes, vacant weeks, short-term rentals, discount for family and friends, awesome. Just don't let them do it in advance. You have to know for sure it's going to be vacant before you do something like that. All right, we're moving right along. If you guys have questions live, ask them. Otherwise, I'm going to keep cranking through these questions. All right, next one. With the market shift, do you think it would be beneficial to switch investing strategies? For instance, from flipping to buy and hold. Would it be beneficial? Okay. So the way that this question was asked, I'm going to answer it the way it was asked, but then I'm going to answer what I think most people are thinking that's being asked here. Okay. So could it be beneficial to switch? Yeah, it could switch from buy and hold. I'm sorry, switch from flipping to buy and hold, because as interest rates go up, there's going to be more people renting. As prices of homes go down and interest rates go up, it's like a perfect storm for rentals, right? House prices are going down, which is great, but the rates going up uh, is causing people to not want to buy. But because the house prices are going down, as an investor, it's going to be easier for you to buy, right? You can buy at a cheaper price than you could over the last 2 years, and so you can buy low. And because rates are so high, people are going to come to you to rent. So it's a perfect storm of rentals. Now, that's one thing. Could it be beneficial to switch your strategy? It could, but there's a much different cash situation between flipping and buy and hold. Flipping gives you big chunks of cash every 4 to 6 months with these houses, right? And let's just say you're in a normal average kind of a situation and not in some crazy inflated situation. And a flip for you, an average flip, let's just say it's $30,000, right? Let's just make it a pretty straightforward flip. You're going to make $30,000. Well, it can take a long time to make $30,000 with a buy and hold. So if you're trying to pile up cash and get a big reserve, buy and hold's not going to do that for you. Long-term buy and hold's not going to do that. And so you have to figure out what you're trying to get out of your business. Are you trying to build cash fast, or are you trying to build a portfolio that you're going to hold for 30 years and the houses are all going to double in value and rents are going to go up every year and you're going to have them paid off in the next, 15, 20 years. And that's your goal. I would, rather than worry about what the market is doing, figure out what your goal is. What is your goal as an investor? If your goal is to build a portfolio of long-term rentals that you'll eventually own free and clear, then for sure do that. If your goal is to, put $100,000 in your account this year, rentals won't do it. But if you're just like, what's better for the market? Should I switch? Like, I don't care if I'm buying hold or flip. I just want to know, because the market's shifting, should I change? No, don't change because of the market. Just change your approach, change the way you run your business, change the way you talk to sellers, the way you talk to buyers, the way you deal with you have to adjust to the market conditions, but you don't have to change your strategy. I wholesaled back in 2015 is when I started 2014 I started wholesaling. I still wholesale. I wholesaled when prices were going up. I'm going to wholesale as prices go down. You can stick with your strategy if you want. There's no reason to change because of the market. But if you're like, hey, the market's shifting, houses are getting a little bit cheaper, interest rates are going up, people are going to be coming to the rental market, I want to take part in that market shift, then change. But don't change because you think you're like you're out thinking the market. You're not. You're not out thinking it. You're not outsmarting the market. The market's just moving around. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have any good or bad feelings towards you. It's not good or bad, mean or good. It's just the market. And so if you like flipping houses, if you're a house flipper at heart, and that's what gets you up in the morning and makes you excited that you flip houses and you like it, don't stop doing it. Just do it differently. Do it smarter. Do it better. Adjust to the market. Like I said earlier, buy houses today for the value that they'll bring you in 6 months. Don't buy houses today for the value they would bring 6 months ago, because that was a different market 6 months ago. We were in a much different situation 6 months ago. And 6 months from now, we could be in a vastly different market potentially. So we're kind of in that unstable, downward slope or gap, whatever you want to call it. We're sort of in that transition period where the tectonic plates are shifting, right? And it's like the ground is rumbling and you're just trying to get your footing and figure it all out. And you're just waiting for the rumbling to sort of stop. But don't stop your business. Just be smarter about it. Okay. Do we have any more questions, Angela, back there? Behind the scenes? Anything else happening? We do not. Okay, guys, we're calling it. Thank you for being here. If you're watching this in replay, thank you for checking it out. If you're listening to it on podcast, my podcast, by the way, is Just Start Real Estate. You can go and check it out there. I do the replay every Thursday. So go check it there, guys. Send in your questions for next week, and I will tackle them. And as always, you can join in live, and we're happy to dive in and answer your questions live. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.